Over the past decade, I've taught workshops in Australia, Latin America, Europe, Canada, and here in America, but it had been nearly 20 years since I had taken a workshop from someone else. When I told friends I was headed to Albania and I was greeted with questions like, why do you want to go to Russia, and is that in South America? I knew I was making the right decision. I did my research on this entirely unique place, which withstood a 50-year near total isolation from the outside world. Based on this research, I devised a visual strategy to best illustrate my goals: the double exposure, one for the old Albania and one for the new democratic Albania. I'd known Elena Dorfman for many years, even assisted her once on a shoot in Los Angeles, and knew that she had Albanian origin and had been working in and out of the country for many years. She was dialed, but I also knew her style of photography was different from mine, and I wondered what would happen if she looked at my work and helped me see things in a new way. The class was a creative workshop. We were a blend of writer, artist, photographer, and explorer. There was less geek and more dialogue, discussion, and discovery. I didn't go to make or find something perfect. I went to unplug and to force myself to observe and report. From day one, my goal was to build a real-time magazine while still in country. Shoot and record during the day, then edit, sequence, and design at night. Sometimes as a class, sometimes one-on-one. We moved the pieces around until the puzzle felt just right. Why had it been so long since I'd done this? I kept asking myself, like a traveler who finds a distant land to love, thinking they will return soon, only to watch the decades slip by without a single return trip. But I knew inside, this was the beginning and not the end. Hello everybody, as you can see, I am planning on co-teaching a class later this year in Albania, but before I go any further and give you any more information, I just have to say 2021 is not a typical year, nor was 2020 due to COVID-19. So we are having to assess this situation in real time to make sure that we can safely do this workshop. So we are monitoring the situation, and as we get closer, we will have to make a decision as to whether or not we can safely do the workshop or if we have to postpone. So I just want to make sure that that's up front. This is out of our control. Obviously, this is a global issue and we need to keep it in mind. We want people to have fun and we want people to be safe. I am co-teaching September 24th to October 2nd. And if you want more information about this, it's wideanglephototours.com. And I will put the link below, so don't even worry about remembering that. You can just click the link. Wide Angle Photo Tours was designed and developed by photographer Elena Dorfman. And Elena is somebody that my wife and I have known for a long time. In 2019, Elena came to us and said, look, if you want to go to Albania, now is a great time to go. There's a lot happening. The country is in transition. It would be very interesting. So we jumped on the opportunity. And as I mentioned in the film already, I took Elena's workshop, and this is the first workshop I had taken in probably 20 years. And I kick myself now, after having done Elena's workshop, I kick myself for not having done this more because it was so insightful and helpful for me, because I haven't had anybody look at my work, edit my work, sequence my work in over 20 years. So it was kind of revolutionary to me to sit with someone whose background and experience in photography is very different from mine. Elena is someone who was able to navigate high levels of photojournalism, editorial photography, and then transition on to high levels of fine art. And in my experience, that is very rare. Typically, people specialize in one genre, they stick with that genre, and to transfer to a second genre, a third genre, that's really difficult. And to do it at a high level is incredibly rare. And so sitting at night with her, looking at my work and dragging and drop spreads and building something in real time like a magazine was fantastic. Now, what happened during the workshop was, as we would sit at night and she would help me drag and drop spreads and design my publication, she said, hey, what you're doing with this, building this magazine in real time, I haven't seen anyone do it quite like that. What do you think about coming back in 2020 and co-teaching, and we'll teach photography and publication design? And I said, great, that sounds fantastic. And then obviously COVID hit, we had to postpone to 2021. So this workshop is going to be a combination, but I want to give you a little bit of heads up here. Wanted to give you a little background on who Elena is. And Elena's taught all over, by the way. And in fact, I'm in Santa Fe right now. She teaches here at the Santa Fe workshops as well. And the reason why I am doing this, in addition to the fact that it's fun, is that I used to do this on a regular basis. As I mentioned in the film to start this, I've taught workshops all over the place, and I'm talking about outside of my duties for Blurb. I teach for Blurb all the time and have for the last 11 years, and that includes all the regions of the world that I'm assigned as a Blurb employee. But what I'm talking about is outside of that, really just doing things about creativity, photography, bookmaking, and I realize I actually kind of miss it. And so going back and co-teaching will be really fun. What to expect? Most of the time these classes are relatively small, which is nice, meaning you spend a lot of time together and you're able to get one-on-one and also group feedback. You have a wide and diverse range of creativity. You might have writers, you might have artists, you might have, who knows, a musician, a photographer, a painter, an illustrator. That's one of the things about 2019 that was so great, was it felt like the attendees were far more than people who were obsessed with photography. There was a much broader range of knowledge and data and experience. And I felt like the conversations that we had were, yes, they were about photography and people were trying to get better as photographers and make better pictures, but the dialogue went far beyond that. And if I look back on my career in photography, one of the mistakes I made, and there are many, one of the mistakes was being too myopic on photography. I should have diversified and been more of a general creative. And so when I got into the workshop in 2019 and I met these people and I heard about their backgrounds and what they did in addition to photography, it made me say, this is the kind of workshop that I want to take. So what else? That's what I would expect in the workshop. What I wouldn't expect is to sit around and geek out about camera equipment, for example. I have been to workshops in the past where the workshop instructor was kind of like, you know, you get to hang out with me for a week and we'll talk about camera gear and equipment and all this stuff. That's not really what we did. There was a range of equipment. It doesn't matter. You could use your phone, you could use a point and shoot, you could use an SLR, mirrorless, paintbrushes, write in a journal the whole time. It doesn't matter. And so if you're looking for something like a workshop where you're going to geek out about camera equipment, I would probably say this is not the workshop for you. Who should come to this? Number one, the people who want to explore a new country. Or perhaps you've even been to Albania. Last year, some of the people on our trip had actually been to Albania before, and that was actually nice because they helped in terms of input and feedback and like explaining some things before we got there. It was really good. Secondly, is people who want to learn, want to get better, and want to get feedback. That's in essence what the idea is. You go and you try something, and we're there to help make you better and to give you ideas on how to further your work. 2 suggestions. Experiment. I noticed in the past teaching workshops that sometimes students would go from workshop to workshop to workshop, and they kind of had like a preconceived notion of what they were going to do. And they kind of had a safe zone of work that they would produce from workshop to workshop. And it all kind of like was safe and kind of felt like it was, you could predict it from 100 miles out. My advice on a workshop like this is to experiment. It's to try something new, because that's what we're there for. We are there to test and experiment and take chances so that you can get feedback as to what's working and what's not. I kind of look at workshops as an assist as to where I'm going to be in a year or 2 years. For example, in 2019, I'd never done double exposures in my life. And I did the research and I thought, I'll do double exposures. And I got to Albania and realized within 30 minutes of the first morning that the technique that I thought I was going to use to do double exposures didn't work. And so I had to make a right turn. I had to adapt, come up with a new system, and then I had to sit with Elena and say, am I on the right track here? Do these actually read? Do they look cohesive? Are they interesting, or do they look cheesy? And I respected her opinion. She could have said, look, this isn't working, just shoot straight images. And I would have said, all right, I'll either try to adapt this technique or I'll just shoot straight pictures. That's the idea behind a workshop. Think about where you want to be in a year or 2 years and use it as a testing ground for something new. And finally, do a little research. So research a little bit about Albania, but don't research too much, because sometimes over-researching something can create too many preconceived ideas in your head, and then you get there and it may not look, sound, or feel like what you thought it was, and it can kind of throw you off. So what I did is I researched the history of the country, I researched the isolation period, and I researched a little bit about some of the things that were going on now, and then also a little bit about what the country actually looked like. What does the architecture look like? What are the heritage sites look like? What are the beaches in the south like compared to what's in the north? That kind of thing, just to give myself a ballpark. So that is what we are planning. Again, I'll put the link to the website below. If you have any questions about any of this, please reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to answer. And if I can't answer, I will talk to Elena and we will get the answers for you. So I look forward to seeing some of you there, and I hope everybody is doing well in 2021.